Well, it's not looking so great, not looking so crash hot for Anthony Albanese. Now, outsiders viewers, of course, who will remember that months ago we've been saying that Albo would be a oncer, a one-term Prime Minister. We've been saying, particularly since The Voice, that Peter Dutton was looking stronger and more likely, and I keep saying and keep repeating, he will win the next election. Well, it seems like the rest of the media have finally caught up with outsiders. Nothing strange there. What we say in June, July tends to be the facts come October, November. So we've had the Sydney Morning Herald, we've had the ABC, we've had the Australian. They're all out there now suddenly discovering Peter Dutton could be the next Prime Minister. What a shock, what a surprise. Rita, did this blow you away, this news that we have an opposition leader who's doing really well?
Well, what happens when an opposition leader actually opposes? When he actually comes to the table with differing views, giving the electorate a different set of policies, as we saw with the referendum. He was very clear in where the coalition stood and where he stood, and the result was emphatic, 61% to 39%. And now we've got the front pages of the Herald Sun, Sunday Herald Sun, Sunday Telegraph. Just nightmare fuel for Albo. I think we've already put up the Daily Telly's Albo a beta male. This is out of research, James, that is going to absolutely devastate him. And Herald Sun's gone with reform or die. And this is Bill Shorten's big push. He is really...
Bill Shorten, you say?
Yes.
Bill Shorten, just writing his time. He's talking there about the NDIS and how there needs to be changes to save it and to save lives. And let's not forget, Bill Shorten has played a very smart game. He didn't say much during the Voice referendum, so his hands are pretty clean there. He's been fairly sane when it comes to international foreign affairs, particularly
He's good on Israel.
He is good on Israel.
So I think he's just sitting back and watching Albo self-implode, and along with a bunch of his senior ministers who've absolutely disgraced themselves with their gutter politics this week, is alleging that Peter Dutton is some sort of a pedophile protector, James?
That's disgraceful. Tell us about it,
It is
James.
disgraceful. I want to get to that in a second, but, you know, what we're seeing here is something that, as you said, Rowan, we've known all along, and people are just waking up to. You know, Albo came into office, and everybody said, oh, big change, you know, coalition's gone, Labour is back. And I'm getting so much of the same energy right now that we had, you know, in 2009. I'm even getting what we had in 2011, 2012 out of this year, because the exact same thing has happened. You know, just as when Kevin Rudd came in, and everybody said, oh, no one's ever going to vote Conservative again. The whole country is shifting to the left. You know, the Liberals are dead, the coalition dead in the water, and Tony Abbott in 2010 took huge strips off of him. In 2013, won handily, smashed Labour. But we're seeing the same thing happen, but happening faster now because, again, with Kevin Rudd, everybody woke up and realized, you know, they've just got Albo. And Albo, I'm sorry, you know, he's just not that impressive a bloke. And
well,
none of
the
this
worse
stuff,
than that, he's not impressive as a Prime Minister.
He's not
Whatever he's like as a bloke is irrelevant.
But
he's a useless Prime Minister.
Well, he is, because here's the thing. He's got no grand narrative that says, here's what Labour is doing. Everything that they're doing is just simply making things worse and then trying to make them better. And people have picked up on this. This is fascinating because the Daily Telegraph, the Sunday Telegraph poll, it was by RedBridge. That's a Labour-aligned firm.
Yes.
This is not, you know, you can't have all the people out there, all the truthers on Twitter going, oh, no, it's just a news poll or something like that. This is RedBridge, all right? You know, you've got people like Kos Samaras in there, and the focus groups are devastating because the focus groups said that nobody thinks this guy is up to the job, and they called him a beta male, which has got to have him in a great mood this morning.
I can't wait till we see the new macho Albo in reaction to this. He's just going to be wearing muscle T-shirts
He'd be like
and working out.
He could get on a horse and go down a creek
He'll be
looking
doing
for a
the
bear.
Robert F. Kennedy thing, lifting weights.
Rita.
Yeah. But we're going to see an image shift because we know he's very image conscious. And I think people have just worked him out. He went into this election, well, the last election, alleging to be a moderate, alleging to be a sensible
He's a lefty.
adult. He's always been in Labor's socialist left faction. That's who he is. And I remember that front page that the Daily Telegraph ran with Albo saying, I'm not woke. but every policy he's been putting in place, from the voice to the climate change lunacy, is woke. I mean, you look at the actions, not their words, and the actions speak for themselves.
But I just want to go back to what Rowan mentioned before here, too, this disgraceful attack that Labour mounted this week on Peter Dutton and the coalition as protectors of pedophiles. This was this bizarre thing around this piece of legislation that they voted against. But the really fascinating thing, and this is where, again, this idea of Albanese being weak comes in, because he sent his ministers, he let ministers like Claire O'Neill go out there and attack Dutton in the most vicious and vile terms. This also comes from, there was that item in the news several weeks ago, small item that said the Albanese government was going to start a much more robust opposition research strategy. This was its first outing this past week in Parliament. They fell straight on their face, and because Anthony Albanese would not then go out and either stand by what his ministers said or disclaim it, and he just simply said, well, I'm just the Prime Minister. I have no responsibility for what my ministers say. Well, everybody said, that looks so weak. Stand by your people or smack them down.
What happened there? Because there's two trains of thought: that he threw his ministers under the bus by not standing behind them and backing up what they said, as crazy as it was, or that he was distancing himself. I mean, what do you think happened there? Because no doubt they would have seen the reaction.
What happened was, as James just said, he is weak and he is woke. I mean, what a ghastly combination, weak and woke. I guess the two often go hand in hand. But Rita...
I think he stood by his ministers. That's what I was trying to convey. I think he actually didn't necessarily abandon their position, because despite the backlash, he refused to, just say, things got heated, things were said that shouldn't have been said, that were unwise. He didn't rebuke them as you would expect after such a ridiculous, outrageous statement. So to me,
but the bloke's drowning. The bloke's drowning. He's waving his hand and drowning, because on every single front, it's a disaster. I said last week, you can judge all Labor's policies and actions by the 3 I's. Ideology, first and foremost, followed by idiocy, followed by incompetence. Every single issue. We saw it again yesterday when we were talking to Alex Antic about this later in the show, how Katie Gallagher came out and said they're announcing this big digital ID. We've been saying for months on this show, do not touch this digital ID. It is poison. It will strip you of your liberties and your personal freedoms. The digital ID is guaranteed COVID on steroids. IDs, or swiping your way into every cafe. Do not touch it. Katie Gallagher comes out and says, oh, no, this isn't going to be mandatory. Straight away, Twitter is onto her saying, no, she's wrong. And they've called out one of Albanese's ministers, top ministers, as being wrong, misinformation. Their own, your own misinformation, guys. You were caught out by this sort of thing. Every single issue, James, you go through, disaster after disaster. We've had the Gazan refugees. We really want 800-odd people coming from Gaza. That's such an intelligent idea, isn't it? Really smart for the immigration.
Hang on, Rowan.
They're going to be vetted.
They're going to be vetted. When opinion polls show that 75% of Palestinians agree with the actions Hamas took, which resulted in rape, murder, and the worst atrocities. Let's grab them. What a great bonus for us.
I'm sorry, Rowan. I have got to pull you up on this here.
Please do.
Because on the form that they fill out, it says, have you been involved in any terrorist activity? Are you a terrorist sympathizer? Now, if they tick no, they could be up for a fine. So seriously, though, this is this SCAZ thing. I'm glad you mentioned it, because this is an absolute outrage and a disgrace. Every day we see more and more footage of the Gazan people out there cheering, beating, jeering at hostages, jeering at them when they're being released. And we're supposed to accept that these people are just going to come in here and they all are just, fully on board with the Australian program, fully on board with fighting anti-Semitism and all of that. Come on, that's nonsense. But all of this stuff here, every area, Rita, where Albanese is making mistakes there, they're real coalition heartland areas.
Yes, that's the point.
We're talking about border security.
Yep.
We are talking about energy policy.
The detainees,
and all of this. All of these are the areas that they had a whole hairy-chested routine going in, saying, "Oh, we're going to be tough on all of this stuff," and oh, we're going to bring your power bills down and all this. Well, the climate stuff is absolutely falling apart. We're going to talk to somebody from Dubai at the COP28 in a little bit, but the the detainee thing. We've seen the first boat come in and land on Australian shores. So we have boats back. I mean, everything is falling apart.